Hi, everyone. I'm Marie, your moderator for today's webinar. It's a privilege to welcome you to reduce finance department cost with accessible automation. So thank you for taking the time to join us. In this session, you will discover how finance teams cutting cost and improving control through smart automation without overhauling existing systems. This trailed session shows how simple tech upgrades can streamline invoice processing, reduce fraud risk, and boost efficiency, and discover how MYOB Acumatica is helping finance team automate manual tasks and cut operational cost and gain real-time insight without complex system overhaul. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some housekeeping rules. So the webinar will run for approximately an hour, so 30 to 45 minutes of presentation, followed by a 15-minute Q&A session. To minimize disruption, all participants will remain muted with your cameras are all turned off throughout the webinar. And if you experience any connection issue, simply log in and log back using the same link. Of course, feel free to submit any question at any time using your Q&A function, which is found on your screen. And this session is being recorded and a copy will be shared to all registered attendees afterwards. So thank you for your attention, and we're looking forward to an engaging and insightful discussion. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our distinguished speakers. Join me in welcoming Rob Sheldrick, Head of Mid-Market Enterprise at Ndevr. So Rob is a seasoned transformation specialist with over 30 years of experience in wholesale distribution, supply chain, beginning his career at Goldman Fielder and later leading modernization projects for brands like Qantas, Komatsu, and Dairelia. He's known for driving business intelligence strategies that prioritize standardization, automation, and reusability. Rob is passionate about helping businesses become future fit and ready to embark or embrace new next wave of technology. But also joining Rob, let's also welcome Shradha Somaia, Global Head of Sales, TRAILD. Shradha brings over 15 years of ERP expertise on her role as a Director of Sales at TRAILD, with a sharp focus on helping mid-market businesses maximize efficiency and control. She played actually a key role in expanding TRAILD, a global presence across North America, Europe, and Australasia. Known for her collaborative approach, Shradha champions TRAILD unique mission, delivering power AP automation with uncompromising fraud protection. So for today's agenda, the session actually will cover definition of finance automation, why automation matters and its benefits, what finance automation look like in practice, and a walkthrough of purchase to payment automation. And finally, we're starting to begin realizing the benefits, specifically on how ERP system plays critical role in enabling and scaling automation across finance function without needing a complete system overhaul. So now, without much further delay, I'll turn over the time to Rob. Rob, over to you, please.
Thank you, Marie, and welcome everybody. So just to start the conversation off for everybody, I know some of the people that are joining us today have been through our previous sessions, but I just wanted to call out, I've got a real focus around organisations on their journey becoming future fit, particularly in the mid-market space. So we've done a bit of work over the previous period of time, and if you guys would like to, you're certainly welcome to join our YouTube channel and go and have a look at some of that work, because I think it'll inform the journey and the conversation that we have from there. All righty.
Okay, so Rob, let's get started with automation. So I think let's start us off with what business and finance process automation exactly.
Okay, no worries. So I'll try and keep this fairly straightforward. I like to scaffold the conversation before we just jump in deep as such. But business automation, it's pretty much what it says. It's all about technology and software systems driving optimization of the processes. So, automation itself doesn't have 5 people doing manual tasks, making it work. This is about relying on those systems to actually do the work for you and set them up accordingly. The drivers there are obviously, or the reason reasons you do those is to achieve efficiency and reduce errors. But I think overall, and hopefully a theme that you're going to hear today and you'll hear from me regularly, is productivity. That's really what we're looking to do. We're looking to do things better, but in a very predictive way. And I've got a personal annoyance where we're all waiting for the government to come out and solve this productivity conversation. It's actually there ready to be solved. We just need more people to pick it up and run with it. So continuing that conversation further, you're doing it for a set of benefits. So they're not going to surprise a lot of people in the room what those benefits are. So there's old favourites around efficiency, reducing the errors that I talked about a second ago. We're also talking about cost savings being delivered by automating something, either doing it faster or removing people from that process where it makes sense. But one of the really big things, or two things that I want to call out and talk to, is around consistency and standardization. What we definitely see is organizations that are able to standardize their work are able to then get more efficiency. They're able to sit there in the future as they grow and deploy those standard processes faster. Scalability then is one of the big things. So we want to talk about benefits being achieved when you've got tenfold growth. How do you do that? So in finance, one of the things that we talk around with automation is about, great, let's have more revenue, let's grow the business. But actually, we don't want to stack the back end up with more people doing the same thing. So we need to find a way to actually do those better. And lastly, I want to call out insights into the business and being able to use real-time dashboards and so on in the finance world to see what's going on, and also compliance and risk. I'll go through them in a deeper sense, but these are the sort of benefits that you should be seeing. Obviously, the nuances by customer or by business that we talk to, but these are all the areas that you're going to get some advantage. And there may be other advantages as well, by the way, like keeping people in your business because they like the automated concept or some of the tools coming through.
Okay. So, Rob, this is really our second episode focusing on the benefits of business automation. And clearly, we can see there are compelling benefits for automation within business. But what about all those AI stuff I hear about? So maybe where does this fit in the conversation for a business?
Yep, apologies, Maria, I pressed the button too early on the next slide. So I think this is really important, the AI conversation. And I've just recently, a few weeks ago, done a targeted AI webinar that you're welcome to go and have a look at. So AI is a game changer, and I think just a couple of points here that are really relevant. And this is not going to be an AI discussion in depth today, but I think you can't talk about automation without talking about AI. So AI takes automation and ensures that we do it faster and we do it smarter. Right. So what I mean by that is that we're putting other things around the automation steps to actually make better decisions about the next thing we do or whatever it may be. Some of the things that are really interesting here is, personally, I grew up in a world where I worked for a poultry company, and 40 years ago, they had things that were on the line that looked at photos of chickens in a poultry world, could make a decision on whether they're A, B, or C. So they're not new. They're just so much better now. AI is being empowered by better technology, better chips that are in play, having data centers that can handle the volume and so on. So it's really important that AI is part of the conversation. And for me, it's about in more intelligence being added into the automation process. So if I take that a step further, I want to draw on some other work that's been presented, not mine, by the way. 2 slides too many, around where AI is sitting in the world today. So this is a graph prepared by Gartner, or one of their guys, John Rama, who talks about the growth and the journey of AI. I think AI personally is somewhere between experimentation and stabilization, but you can see it's coming fast and it's going to be an uplift. So we know in our personal lives we're seeing and using AI. We know that we're using things like ChatGPT or whatever else is out there. But what's going on right now is these things are being embedded today and are available today in ERP solutions, particularly cloud-based solutions, to be able to drive that forward. So what that means is, and what Rama talks about, is just greater productivity. So by having AI elements throughout business systems in various elements, so whether you're just putting an email together and writing it better, whether you're looking to come up with a sales description that goes through an e-commerce platform, whether you're looking at ways to actually have anomalies pointed out to you, it's going to turn on lots of productivity points throughout your workplace. And this is the bit that's really important. We're going to see AI embedded everywhere, And what you would definitely see from an automation point of view is lots of little values adding up to big values or big productivity points. So for me, that's going to be amazing. And what we're going to see is value will be exponential as well. I just want to add one thing in here, Marie, before I stop this point. Please don't be afraid that this means people won't have jobs. Nothing ever in our evolution of men and women in business has ever done that. We think it's going to be there. We think people are going to lose jobs. The reality, they create more jobs on the other side as such. So happy to have a separate conversation with anybody in this session about AI as such, but I wanted to touch on it. So it was definitely part of the automation conversation.
I totally agree. So, Rob, what you're saying is that this is a bit of a compounding interest.
Yeah, that's a good way to
So,
think about it.
yeah. So, what are we trying to work though is what does AI within ERP system really look like?
Okay, so just touching on that again and jumping into our further conversation, what you're seeing is automation is part of it. So this is the contextual stuff where you write better things, where it can move things along in a process faster. It can actually make, based on some events, it can actually make its own decisions and do, looking forward and using the data set that it has within your world or maybe in other worlds as well, and saying, what are the things I need to purchase down the line as such. So Maria, just point out, I'm getting your internet is a little bit unstable, so let me know if there's any problems. Anomaly detection is a big one. So as risk and fraud, and you'll see me talk about that today, becomes a bigger thing, we need a powerhouse AI solution that can actually handle the bandwidth and the amount of traffic and manage that in real time. And real time is critical here to be able to detect things that are going on. I think the biggest one for AI personally is natural language processing. Being able to talk to a solution and say, I'd like a dashboard, I'd like this information in it, iterate that solution in real language, right, is going to open up so much of the solution to the normal people that work in the world. No longer do we have to make comments like, if they can do pivot tables in spreadsheets, they can probably do the dashboards, right? Amazing. And just seeing in a couple of years where that gets to is going to be exciting in my world. And then finally, decision support, looking for patterns that are going on, helping you make the right decisions and so on. Just very quickly here, a good story. Apple did a lot of work around reasoning in AI, and I tend to believe them. I don't think we've actually got the reasoning side ticked off in AI. What we've got is very smart decision-making tools that can look at data and work out what's going on, not reasoning, which human beings do.
Right. So I think that's, AI is not really like a job or replacer, but of course, it's actually an enhancer. So I get that AI is a unified ERP. It's going to drive massive productivity gains. So Rob, what does all this look like for a finance department?
Okay, so I'll just give you a bit of an insight today around things, and the intention of today's session is not to cover everything in complete depth, but I'll put this slide together because I think it sort of represents the 10 things, and I like numbers of 10, although you'll notice there's 11. There are 10 things that I think are typically in the conversation for finance automation. So there's the old favorites around accounts payable, accounts receivable. We're going to show you accounts payable today. The reason for that is that's some significant bang for buck, and it also talks to risk and fraud down the bottom, which I'm going to come to. But it's also about having real-time information through your financial reporting, having your GL act and operate in a way that actually can take some of the workload off people doing journals and so on, and having events take place in the business and have a reaction quickly to those events within your system to drive activities. So if I drill into that, and I would say to you guys, you're welcome when the recording comes out to read the detail. I certainly will try not to read verbatim what's on here, but I'll give you an idea what's going on. So as I said, we know about accounts payable side of things, and we'll go through that in a second with Shradha particularly. But on the GL side, we want to be actually setting up, or if there's repetitive journals, let's just automate them. If there's a need to take a payment for your telephones and spread that and allocate it across multiple departments or multiple entities, depending on the business, let's just do that. Let's just do it in the background, get it done, right? If there's recurring entries that are going to take place, let's get those in the system, as I said. So there's ways to make that smarter, and there's other ways to work with GL as well. If we're talking about working with expense management, having some rules that work out when people put in certain things, you can pre-code that into the system and not have them have to make choices. Maybe we still want to give them the ability to override a choice depending on the business we're talking to, but we want to drive that stuff forward. A big one here, and I think people just walk past this as automation, because I talk to a lot of mid-sized businesses that are still using a lot of Excel, don't quite get the information. We want to get you to financial reporting, or any reporting for that matter, being real time, presented in a dashboard, make your life easier by presenting red things and green things so you know where to focus your efforts, be able to work with the KPIs that support your strategies and present back in real time or near time, depending on the KPI, what you should be doing there, and allowing drill down capabilities into the source data to assess when you need to do. So my analogy I always think about is like skipping along the top of a lake, and you're happy looking at the business, seeing what's going on until you need to dive into the information, and you need to have that link that's not available in Excel, and frankly, it's not available in systems that don't support good dashboarding and so on. So that's certainly part of the conversation. Further to that, I also wanted to bring in a couple other things. We've got workflow and business events that I think is a big one. So there are things that happen in your business, and today maybe some of you are handling those manually, whatever that trigger might be. Let's say it's a return from a customer of some goods, and you need to check it out before it goes back into stock. So today there's some steps around that, there's some quality, but we want to try and automate those things. And the driver here is you have more control of reacting to an event that takes place if you can do it closer to that event. You can impact on it and improve it and so on. So what we're looking for is having events drive things in the finance world, like certain transactions that have to take place, maybe just updating a record, maybe it's sending an email text notification to somebody that something has happened. So all of those automation steps are looking to save time, but more importantly, put you closer to that event that you're trying to affect, to then actually get a better outcome with that event. So I hope that makes some sense around that. I did want to just call out though and focus on risk and fraud detection, because I don't think I need to scare anybody. I think we all understand what's going on in the world. Qantas hack has just happened, as most people knows, and who knows what that actually means in detail for us people that are on that list, and I am. But what we're looking for is tools and automation that actually can identify things as they take place and help you mitigate the risk as such, and even identify pure fraud and so on. So that's a big thing for me. I think that sort of stuff that only automation and AI moving into the world we're moving into can actually help us with in an effective manner. So this is moving away from the days of having an audit, sitting down, looking at reports, looking for those anomalies. We want the systems to be able to tell us these things. In fact, we want the systems to actually react to some events and do some things about those. So one of the things that I wanted to call out with TRAILD, as you'll see, and a spoiler alert, sorry, Shradha, if I'm stealing your thunder. One of the things I love about TRAILD, it's so much more than OCR in the automation space as such. So if your suppliers are sending in their supplier invoices via email, it goes into a TRAILD inbox, and TRAILD will look at the IP address and determine, based on some algorithms and IP they have, is this IP address a concern? Does it come from a scammer or whatever it may be? So the first instance you're dealing with a supplier invoice, they've got your back. They're doing some things to make sure it makes sense. And of course, most of the time things just run through, right, as it should. And we'll talk about velocity. But I think I just definitely want to call out automation in the role it plays, or will be playing more and more in AI as well, with risk and fraud. So just jumping to the conclusion around this part of the conversation. So, I mean, if I can say anything to you guys, if you're not embracing automation, if you're not really looking at where that fits, and you're happy that, what I hear in the real world is people are saying that process still works, we'll just keep doing that. We'll focus on some other areas. I would really say to you, if you want to be a leader in your space, or even if you just want to keep up with what's going on, you need to really focus on embracing automation. And with the AI overlay, or the extension of AI that already existed in many cases, it's just a powerhouse to productivity. So, regardless of anything else, if you're not embracing this stuff and you're not thinking about putting it into your business where it isn't today, and of course you'll have some today, go hard, because you'll be sitting here in a couple of years' time and sitting there and saying we're not on the same train for whatever reason. So my comment is, you don't hide from automation anymore, and nor should you, because the value is going to be significant.
Thanks, Rob. So I'm 100% with you. So I think we need to really embrace automation in our business. And okay, I think it's probably time now to take us through the real life example. So after all, we have Shradha waiting to share her knowledge.
No, good point. And I did invite Shradha to this session. She'll be upset with me if we don't bring her in. So let me just set the scene a little bit with TRAILD, and I won't spend too long doing a marketing piece on them. But I think one thing I'd just call out, and hopefully you'll see as Shradha does her show and tell today, this is AP automation that we're talking about. And this is so much more than OCR and capturing things. That side's really good, by the way. So I want to be clear that these guys, again, spoiler alert, they achieve an amazing, 90, 95 out of the gate result with OCR success. And for somebody that put OCR into some organisations previously many years ago, it used to take us weeks to train to work out what to do. And it was fun, to be honest, to play with all that stuff. But these guys come out of the box and they're running hard, and that's really important. The other thing is that they focus on two twin issues, and I think I just want to call those out as such. So we talked about the OCR side, or just the processing side, because it's more than OCR. There is that clear value proposition. So once you get to a certain number of supplier invoices coming through your world, and we'll debate that number at some point, but it's kind of 200 to 300, not 2,000 to 3,000. There is savings to be made here to free your people up, but there's a lot of other things about that process and having the quality and the error reduction and checking out that is equally important. On the other side, they're and I think they're a standout in the market at the moment for organisations in the mid-market and even bigger. These guys really have thought about the whole fraud detection side, and they have a number of elements, a lot of IP they don't even tell me about, on how they do the checks and balances. Now, Shradha's going to go through that, but I wanted to make sure that was clear before we get there. So if we just touch on the purchase to pay process, I'll put a quick slide together, just a basic one that kind of talks about the 12 or 13 elements of steps that take place today in most organisations. And some of you guys on this call today will have some automation in this place. And I'm talking to the people that probably are further back on the journey. And as is example here, we might have some routing for approval processes. Once a PO is created, there might be some stuff before the PO is created that's automated to maybe bring together a heap of requisitions. But there are a number of steps that go through. And traditionally, at some point, a list of invoices sit on somebody's desk and they go through it at the end to say, do we want to pay it? Some version of that. What we're talking about today and what we're exposing, fully automated supplier payments. We want to actually have those things come in, run through a process at velocity, and the things that don't have a lot of issues, as you'll see with Shradha's show and tell today, just go through at speed. All right, that's how they should work. It then frees you up to worry about the exceptions. So we talked about the fraud detection and picking up things of concern. We want to focus people's efforts around whatever is presented that needs some sort of check and balance and so on. I think the other side that's really important, and I'm going to start off in Acumatica with a purchasing flow, is we can automate the whole replenishment process too nowadays. Now, this doesn't make sense for all businesses, and I know there'll be some people going, well, you wouldn't do that. But for a lot of businesses that actually understand, they've got to replenish goods at a certain point just in time, whatever it may be, that whole process can be automated. If you set up the contracts and you've got a buying pattern, we can automate that. So I just wanted to put that in front of you, because ideally we're taking 12, 13 steps and turning it into a few steps in Sensible. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand over to Sean, who's going to take us through Acumatica process at a high level, just in a few minutes, to show us reacting to the system telling us via a dashboard, you need to purchase some stuff. So that's part of the automation. Having that purchase process go through automatically, or in the case of what we're showing you here, there's an approval level based on the buying size, and then have that later on picked up as a delivery and receipted into the goods. So we're doing the first two steps of a three-way match effectively. So let's jump in there and have a look at that.
Okay, Mike, our purchasing manager, comes in and starts his day as he always does, reviewing his dashboard for key statistics to see what stock needs to be purchased based on automatically calculated suggestions from our system. Now, these suggestions are the result of a number of real-time parameters being factored into our calculations automatically, including stock levels, reorder points, safety stock, and forward demand, to name a few, which will then provide Mike with an immediate list of purchase priorities. Assuming he's happy to proceed, Mike then hits process on the order for it to follow the next step of the workflow. Now, in our case, we actually have it set so that any orders below $20,000 raised by Mike don't need to go for any further review. There's no need to put anything on hold, nor any further approval required from any of our management. However, as this order is quite a big one, it will need to go through to James for review. Mike does that by removing hold to allow it to follow through into the next step of the process. Now, James, our owner, is rarely up as early as Mike, but when he does jump into his dashboard to start the day, he checks in on some of the real-time numbers showing for the business on his finance manager's dashboard. James quickly looks for any red items, as that's the workflow we have coded, and seeing none, he's happy to proceed on to look at the purchase orders that he needs to review. James updates his list, finds the order that was created, and he can now go in and confirm the details as shown. James has reviewed the information on the order, and he's happy that this can go through to the supplier. He approves the order, and at this point, James's part in the process is now complete. Based on the automated workflow, this order is now sent directly to Ozone Organics to be fulfilled. Several days later, Gillian, our trusty store person, arrives back from lunch to find a truck waiting for her at the warehouse with a delivery that has now arrived from Ozone Organics. Never one to waste time, Gillian checks the stock is delivered and signs a delivery docket to let the truck driver get away. On entering the purchase order receipt, Gillian is then able to confirm all the details as supplied and enter any additional information as required. Jumping onto the warehouse computer down in the end of the dock, Gillian enters the details provided on the paperwork and matches the information she has on hand. Gillian's very happy with the numbers and releases the receipt. This ensures the stock is immediately available for sale, which is very handy as we have just received some big orders for some office hardware.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sean. So just to back in on that, I asked Sean to focus on not fully automating the process, because if we fully automated the process, we'd have nothing to show you. So there are elements there that obviously can be automated and made better. One of the things I think that's really important there is that we need to balance automation around where the business is at, either in its journey or what the business actually does. It's a bit of a nuanced conversation. So, all right, I'm going to hand over to Shradha now, who's going to pick up the first two steps and finish the three-way match and then tell us more about the solution. So over to you, Shradha.
Thank you. I am going to share my screen so I can pick up the process where we just left off. So we do that. Okay, excellent. All okay, Rob, on your end?
Yep, I can see that. Looks great.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so just from completing that three-way match or that purchase order that was created, from a TRAILD perspective, when touchless invoicing is enabled, actually that didn't even hit my draft queue. It auto picked up, it auto approved, it auto matched, and the first I'm seeing of that is in my approved bucket here. So there's the Ozone Organics invoice that's been fully matched. And if I drill into it, it'll show me the line items, the receipts, and all the PO lines that were being matched. But here it shows that it's all been auto approved. So that's essentially the end-to-end workflow. There was actually nothing for me to show you or demo in that example, because as soon as it hit that draft queue, providing that match was within your tolerances or successful match, it kind of went the whole way through that entire workflow. So this is basically what's left here is to pay this invoice. It will auto export now to Acumatica. So here where Sean was just earlier in the bills and adjustments section, there is where you'll find it ready to be batched up and put into a payment file. So there are customers, of course, that for the majority of their business do raise purchase orders, and that can kind of be your workflow every single time. And then, of course, there's a cohort of customers that have the non-PO related invoices. So for the sake of completeness and to actually be able to show you something about TRAILD, because that was a complete match, I will go through a non-PO related example as well to show you exactly what happens. Like Rob mentioned earlier in the piece, the whole premise of TRAILD is to combine automation with complete end-to-end fraud protection. And our mission really is to make, the type of fraud protection that's normally available to those enterprise grade businesses available to every single business across Australia and New Zealand, to make sure that we are never paying a fraudulent invoice. Now, the types of checks that we're doing upon arrival, every single invoice will land as a draft. And so there's a couple here that I've got loaded to pick up. But the types of checks that we're doing as these invoices arrive, again, Rob alluded to a couple of these things earlier, but we're checking things such as the bank details. Do the bank details match not only what you paid them last time, but how everyone else throughout the economy is paying this particular supplier? If they're charging you GST, are they registered for GST? Is their business registered, or at least active registration on the Australian Business Register, or if they're a global supplier, on their country's register? And even things such as IP address. And so if normally you're used to dealing with a particular vendor, say Bunnings, for an example, from say Melbourne, and today this particular Bunnings invoice came to you from say Florida or somewhere different, it will flag suspicious IP address. And even things such as the logo. Is the logo missing any pixels? So even the most thorough of AP teams, these are the types of checks that your AP team wouldn't necessarily be able to do, especially on every single invoice. And so the whole premise of TRAILD is to help you manage by exception. Those that match successfully, as you saw, there's nothing for you to do. They'll land in Acumatica ready to be batched up. And those that don't meet, and if I just go back to this approved section, that one of the reasons this was auto approved, in addition to it being a PO match, is also because there was a low risk invoice. There was nothing about that invoice that stemmed out as suspicious or abnormal, and therefore it went all the way through. If I go back to the draft section and pick up another one of these invoices, say this one for Bunnings Trade, this is a non-PO related invoice. So the way that you would manage the workflow in TRAILD for this is on the left-hand side, you will see a copy of the invoice that was just sent through to TRAILD. Now, the way to get it sent through to TRAILD to begin with is simply we set you up with an email address, and your invoices can just flow straight on into there. So your suppliers can just send that on through. And of course, for those that are sending you any physical invoices, you can manually upload those up just by a simple upload button and drag those in. So here I've just clicked on Bunnings. On the left-hand side, you'll see a copy of the invoice. On this right-hand side, the screen's divided into a number of different sections. But if I just start with this invoice, supplier, and pricing screen, there's essentially nothing to do in this top section, but I wanted to show you what the system has done. So as I'm clicking through to every single field, you'll see a red box on the left-hand side here, and that red box is telling you where the OCR's picked it up from. Now, like Rob mentioned, OCR is pretty stock standard across many AP tools. Where we slightly differ is that we have inbuilt machine learning. So if, for example, this was outside of correct, this was not populated correctly, which it will be 95% of the time, but if it wasn't, then you have a drop-down list here of every possible data point throughout this invoice. And if I kind of just slowly scroll down, you're looking at that red box jumping around all over the screen, and that's machine learning. So I just have to keep scrolling down until that red box is in the correct spot, click it, and the system will essentially memorize that for next time. So you're not having to teach the system every time when it's doing something wrong. Similarly, all of these fields, so whether it's a supplier, whether you're using projects, whether you're using purchase orders, even the invoice date and the due date. So you're just kind of following that red box around to make sure you're comfortable with where it's come from. And you only have to do this one time per supplier, because of course, every time thereafter, the machine learning kicks in and it memorizes what you did the first time. Now, if you have terms in Acumatica, the due date will populate from your terms. So here it's come from the document, but if you have terms, that would override that. Here in the supplier section, the system has read the document and it's read that it's come from Bunnings, and it's then gone into your master data in your Acumatica solution and brought through the corresponding information for Bunnings. The reason we're doing that is because this is the first time this invoice is being scanned, and if there is something strange or abnormal about this document, we're going to start providing your AP team with a series of risk warnings here. So here I've just changed a couple of the details, and it's telling me that, hey, the previously stored account number is different to what this document's asking you to make payment on. And we couldn't find an ERP tax supplier that's similar to this in your ERP software. So the same types of things I was talking about before, if the logo doesn't match, or the IP address is suspicious, or they're charging you GST but not registered, all that sort of stuff is where you would see these types of warnings. Now, we're not only checking this against your master data, we're also checking it against the economy. So if there is anyone outside of your business and outside of our business or outside of our platform paying that supplier, we're going to be ensuring that you're in line with how the rest of the economy is paying them. Here in the pricing section, you don't have to worry about currency or tax category. That will default to whatever you have set for this supplier in your ERP master data. So here it's a quick price check. Again, I've just clicked and I'm looking for this red box just to make sure it's all okay. So I took a minute to go through that, but generally speaking, after the first time round, that should be touchless for that top section as well. Moving down to this goods section, of course, here we have no purchase order to match to or to bring in, but there are a number of line items here on this document. So if I click this add from invoice button, then these line items have now come into the body of the screen. So again, you're looking at that red box. This will now allow me to code this invoice to the chart of accounts that I have set up in Acumatica. So this pipe fixing piece can go to a certain GL code or a certain project, certain sub account, or the normal coding that you would expect to do. Now here, if you wanted to split out an invoice, if it gets that complex for your business, then you can take this pipe fixing piece and just split that, say, twice, and it will duplicate that line item, allowing you to attribute a percentage or dollar value to across a number of different cost centers. If you don't want to worry about line items, then you can not add those in, but you can take the overall cost of the invoice and split that instead. So I want to take the overall $250 and split that twice. And again, it's just going to split that out 50-50. So one's a header level split and one's a line level split. Just cancel that out. If I keep moving down, activities and general information. Activities is, for example, if I was working for you as your junior AP clerk and new to the business, I could come and tag somebody internally and say, what GL code should this go to? This is essentially what you're doing just by talking to each other or, emailing each other. But the majority of fraud commences from someone hacking into your inbox, so business email compromise. So this is going to keep everything encrypted, everything's date stamped and time stamped, and all the information is contained for audit trail purposes as well. General information is, here I've already coded all my GLs and everything, so I'm going to leave that. But if I did select the GL and sub account down here, this is my master. So all of my line items have now changed to that master. So either you code at a line level or you can code at a header level here. I'm going to go ahead and hit submit on this one. And it's gone out of my draft queue and it's gone into the approval queue. So in terms of whose approval queue it goes into, that's best done by having predefined approval matrix that says, this invoice needs to go to Rob for approval, but that's all based on your rules. So if you want to have different approvers based on your cost centers or your suppliers or even the amount within a document, then you can set those rules up so that the invoice will go to the appropriate person. I'll show you what the approver sees in a second, but let's just pick up one more. I won't process this one, but I did want to show you that this is an invoice that's come from IKEA. It's an 8-page document, but it's actually not one invoice. It's about, I think, 4 or 5 different invoices contained here. Very quickly, just wanted to show you that we have an inbuilt split invoice button here. Again, just to help you to split out this invoice easily and quickly. So it's going to apply a pair of scissors where each document ends. So this has read every single page. It's read the header and the footer and applied those splits as required here. I'm going to hit split document and this will now land in my draft queue, but land as 5 documents rather than 1 document, just making it easier for you to get those processed. Now, if I go back to my draft queue, those IKEA invoices will start to land in about 3 to 10 seconds. But if I just move to the next stage of the AP funnel, it's called pending review. So there's my Bunnings invoice that we just processed together. And there's a different invoice that I loaded earlier, just so I could show you how we start to introduce those same risk warnings to the approver. So both of these invoices are here waiting for my approval. I'm now playing the role of the approver as opposed to the AP clerk. And here this Bunnings one has been caught in the approval workflow. So if I click on the invoice to see why, on the left-hand side is that same document that we coded. Here I can see all my coding and where I put everything to. Here I can see that I wrote a comment to Kirsten and maybe what she's responded if she had responded. But here I'm seeing that it's a medium risk invoice. But the only reason this is flagging as medium risk is because we've never paid this supplier before. They're a new supplier for our business. Now that's one I'm happy with, so I'm going to go ahead and hit approve. The next one I might take a couple of extra seconds on. So it's from Kingfisher. I can see all the information in the document, but I can also see that it's a high risk invoice. The reason it's high risk is because the previously stored account number that we paid is different to what this invoice is asking us to make payment on. But also the maximum we've ever paid to these guys is $1,345. And this invoice is more than double that amount. Now that could be okay, but it is going to flag it as a slightly abnormal amount compared to your historical averages with this particular supplier. So mainly for this first reason, I'm going to not approve this one straight away. I'm yet again going to tag Kirsten within my organization and say, can you call supplier and check bank details? Let me know what you find. So I don't want this going anywhere near Acumatica at this point for payment. So I will leave that in her capable hands. And for now, I will reject this invoice with a fully customizable list of reasons, but I'm just going to put other, and I'm just going to put waiting on Kirsten to come back to me. And reject. My invoice tray is empty. The only ones that have made it to approved is that auto approved one from the beginning for Ozone, and then that one that we just did together and we approved for Bunnings. The other one that we rejected has gone into my rejected pile, as you would expect. This is just a holding ground. We still have to do something about this one, but once Kirsten's figured it out, she can put it back into my approval queue and it'll come back in my pending review, sorry. Final stage, we're now interested in these approved invoices. So all of these invoices will now auto export out to Acumatica. They will land in the bills and adjustments section, which is otherwise where your AP is being processed today. Thanks to the integration, that's a live export. So these will land and be ready for you to batch up into a payment file. So here's all my invoices, the Ozone, all my Bunnings, and everything that I've approved will ultimately be exported here. Once I'm in Acumatica, I need to go ahead and create my batch file for payment. The very last stage of TRAILD is that once your batch file has been created in Acumatica, we're going to automatically put a copy of that batch file straight back into TRAILD into this payment section here. And I'm going to pick up the latest batch file that I have from Acumatica. Now, the reason that CFOs and executives choose to do their final batch review in TRAILD is because, yes, of course, you can do it here. These are all your invoices. They've landed with a copy of the invoice as well. But what TRAILD will do is put it in this type of format to make it easier for you to understand where your risks are within your batch file. So here's an ABA file that's come out of Acumatica. I've got a list of all of my suppliers that I'm about to pay on the left-hand side. I've got here the verification status as to whether has that supplier been, has it passed or failed the TRAILD verification checks. Here, I've got all the amounts that I'm about to pay per supplier. And here on the far right-hand side, it's telling me that all of these invoices are looking okay. They're all in line and low risk. But these 4 that have been pushed to the top of the list are where my risk lies. So for example, this one for Rogers Rabbits, they failed the verification. We can't find that supplier throughout the economy. And the $1,000 odd that you're about to pay to that supplier, a couple of things wrong here. First and foremost, they're a new supplier. You've never paid them before. Second of all, there should be no GST component in this invoice because they're not registered for GST. And finally, their business registration is no longer active or valid. This one here that says bank. So Kingfisher is in your batch. And they're looking pretty good from a supplier perspective. We can validate that they exist, but the $2,200 odd that you're about to pay them, nobody else is paying them into that same bank account. So here, as a CFO or the executive or owner within the business, you're going to want to take a look at least at these 4 invoices. And to make it easier for you to do that, every single one of these has a little drop-down arrow next to them. So if I click on any of these drop-downs, it's going to show me all the invoices in my batch for this particular supplier, and there is a problematic invoice causing this batch to be high risk. So rather than having to check every one and just randomly pick what I spot check, I will deliberately then be able to drill into this invoice, have a further look, understand how it's made it this far into the batch. I can also see my full audit history, and I can even, for this bank one, for example, did Kirsten actually end up, calling the supplier? What happened? What happened when you called? So I can kind of use this. And the idea behind this screen is to bring everything together, the invoices, the risk profiles, the approver, the audit history, bring everything together to give that final approver a full picture of what they're about to approve. Like I mentioned, all of these are drop down. So any one of them, if you click through, you won't lose your page. You've still got your payment page here, but it will open up a new window and it will take you directly back into the invoice in question for you to have a bit of a deeper look. Once you're happy with your batch, you can go ahead and approve or reject and upload the file to the bank as per your standard process. The very last thing in the trailed workflow is this suppliers tab here. Now, as I showed you before, all the invoices do get exported out to Acumatica, so you have a copy of them there. But this supplier tab really does just act as a digital filing cabinet. So if I'm looking for a supplier invoice or if I'm being audited for whatever reason, I can provide access to this suppliers tab. Just type in Qantas, for example, if that's who I'm looking for an invoice from, and it will hyperlink me to Qantas, and it will hyperlink me to every invoice I've ever paid to Qantas with, again, a full audit history. Scanned invoices, handwritten invoices, our OCR is proprietary and it is enterprise grade. So as long as a human eye is able to read it, then our OCR is able to read it and memorize how you're interacting with every single supplier. This is the digital filing cabinet and essentially rounds out the end-to-end trailed workflow. I won't go through any of these other tabs. They're more just configuration based. Trailed is highly configurable. So if you're an organization that wants to enable complete touchless invoicing, then you can do that. But if you're an organization that really does want to maintain a level of control, maintain a level of visibility, even for those PO matched invoices, it's really configurable as to what you do and don't enable to be touchless. So there's the end-to-end workflow, everything from trailed in conjunction with MYOB Acumatica. There you have it, Marie.
Thanks, Shradha, for taking us through the process or the steps. So I can see that your automation world is much more than OCR. So you really deliver your mission of protecting businesses without slowing them down, of course. So what do you think, Rob?
Well, fantastic, but I'm already a fan, right? To be honest. So let's have a bit of a measure how they went against the benefits. But I just want to point out a couple of things that I think are relevant, that just to make sure everybody understands. So firstly, Shradha showed her solution trailed inside Acumatica. So this is really important. So you have a choice to actually work within the product, and that's fantastic from an ERP point of view, or work without the product. Why this works for me and why I love it is the closed loop nature. Nothing is left behind in trailed that is not inside the ERP. And I've been around other solutions over time where, all those documents that have been stored, as Shradha showed there in the document file, don't make it into your ERP. So what happens if trailed for some reason isn't your choice in 3 years' time or whatever else? And I'm sure they would be, by the way. We close that loop, and that's really important. The other thing that stands out there, before I go through the benefits, and I want to make sure it's not lost, is Shradha went to the ABA file or the approvals list. What really resonates every time I see it is that so much of it is green down the bottom, and it focuses you on the 4 at the top that you need to do something about. So Shradha talked through all the various steps about what to do, communicating to Kirsten, etc. You're not doing that on all the ones that are flowing through with velocity. You're doing that on the exceptions you need to understand. So let me just jump through the benefits and talk to how we went. So I think overall a lot of ticks, right? One of the things that you would expect to see is increased efficiency, less errors, cost savings being delivered, and so on. I think the other things I'd like to call out is that consistency, that standardization. So everybody knows what the process would be. So when you're communicating, there's not manual pass it over a desk sort of thing. It is flowing through a logical arc that these guys are defined. Scalability is really important. We know this in real life, that our customers that are leveraging trailed in our world, when they have grown, and we talk to a lot of people that do grow, that's the point of my focus, this thing just is fine. It's just the same. There's no difference. They might have more suppliers and therefore there's a few more things to follow up in that side, but they're not putting on extra staff. So the scalability matches what Acumatica does in that side as well. I think the other things I would like to really hone in on is that compliance and risk, because I think this is the market leading part of the conversation. I think their OCR is great if you're doing that, but at the end of the day, others do that stuff as well. But the compliance bit is really important. And I know from genuine discussions we have with our customers or even prospects that become our customers, they all have stories about something that didn't go right. So Shradha and I have just got a new customer that signed up about a month and a half ago, I think. And in our discussions, they shared that from a GST point of view, they'd struggled because somebody was getting paid but never registered for GST. And then we sort of laughed a little bit after that, where the big story came out about the AFL umpire down in Melbourne for 10 years had been getting GST when he hadn't registered and so on. And here's the point. He only got through once with that, where somebody didn't do the right check. And then for 10 years, they kept paying him and over because they didn't do other checks after the fact and so on. So I think this part of the solution is really, it's not just important, you've got to have that in today's world. So Shradha, here's the challenge for you I'm going to put out there. Is there any way you can tell me how many people like me, Qantas customers, are actually receiving from Qantas in the near future, or the IP address on the email I'm getting? Can you bring that into my world, not just into the world of our customers? Because that would be intriguing to know.
You cut out in about 20 seconds of that question, but was it around you mentioned Qantas, was it around how your business interacts with Qantas compared to the rest of the economy?
No, I think, yeah, thank you. Apologies for cutting out. I'm doing in some way TRAILD can help me understand, as you do for businesses, if I'm getting a dodgy IP for Qantas in the future, or a different bank account that I've got to deal with and so on. So
absolutely.
That would be intriguing to know. All right,
yeah,
so let's give a lot of ticks there. And just for the group that are watching today, it's hard to show you automation without showing you a product, but we didn't want to just show you a product. We wanted to actually give you a sense of where it fits in the play and so on. So there we go, Marie.
All right, that's thanks, Rob. So looks like we are ticking off a good number of benefits. So for those people watching us today, so who wants to go away and drive the benefits of automation, what should they be thinking about?
Okay. So I think this is a relevant conversation. So I don't have 20 slides about all the next steps, because this is a nuanced discussion as well that we would like to enjoy talking you through and understanding your world better. But if I put it into some really important steps to think about, first of all, don't be afraid to invest where it matters in automation. So you can't automate by doing the same things you do today. And you can't automate without systems to support that automation. That's just a fact. So I'm not saying go and invest the world tomorrow, but do not be afraid to actually invest in automation, because the payback's there. Learn from others that have gone before you is a really important point. So please come and have conversations with myself and Shradha. We're more than happy to do that, or talk to other people in your network around what they've seen. You do not hear people sit there and go through, particularly in AP automation, but some of the other things around business automation, finance automation, you do not hear people sit on the other end and go, it's a waste of time. You may hear somebody say, we automated the wrong thing. So, make sure you're automating a practice or a process that actually is right. And that's coming back to, if the systems and so on do that today, leverage them. They've done it before. Ensure you have the right foundation. So look, I'm a big one on this. I'm not saying you can't do automation with Xero and AccountWrite and other business tools that are out there to some extent. But automation is about connecting all the parts that work together at a global level. So what we definitely find is cloud ERPs have an advantage. Things are in there. I'm a big one for don't introduce too many touch points and so on. It doesn't mean you can't, depending on your business needs, etc. But if you've got the right foundation to automate and to support automation, then that makes so much more sense. So you've seen today Acumatica being presented quickly, and then how Shradha's TRAILD solution drives back into that world. You need to do it in steps. So identifying and ranking the right things to do, it makes sense, right? So I think AP automation is always the top of the tree if you're not doing it. Even if you are doing it better around some of the risk analysis that we've talked about today, should be right up there. But there might be other things that are really important to you and your business around tracking events and so on. As I sort of touched on a second ago, get your house in order first. If your data's not right and your stock keeping's not clear, you're not going to automate replenishment. But if you've got your warehouse in order or your warehouses in order, and you understand what's going on and you've got a view of what's forecast looks like and demand, then you want to automate your replenishment and make that easier for everybody. Outside of
Right.
automation, this is a normal business concept. You should be automating your outcomes. So you should be outcomes focused for your automation. And then finally, take people with you on the journey. So I think my internet might be playing up again, Marie, but I'll try and push through a little bit. Take people with you on the journey. So automation is going to impact people. It is a change conversation, and some people are going to be having role changes, or they're just the idea of things being automated. And then finally, AI I touched on today. Look, it's here and it's coming harder. And I just think it's an obvious one for me. If you're not doing it, everybody else you either compete or work with will be doing it. So, find a way. Don't think that everything's got to be AI and so on. But it will be a standard in business tomorrow. All right, Marie?
Great. So yeah, sorry to cut you off there earlier, Rob. So like Rob says, so if you're considering the next step, and there's it's never been a better time to invest in automation. So it's the smartest way to streamline, save, and scale. So thanks, Rob. And of course, thank you, Shradha, for that fantastic presentation and a very insightful discussion. So I'm pretty sure our audience by now already have some questions in mind. So some of those questions might already been touched during the discussion or the presentation. But of course, for the benefit of others, let's dig into the detail and let's keep the energy high and of course the questions flowing. So yeah, so we will now open the floor to the most exciting part, our Q&A session. All right, so for our first question, so we have here, what other finance processes are best candidates for automation?
Okay, so I think that's to me, Marie, if I imagine it. So I've touched on the purchase to pay process. I think is definitely one of the best candidates. That's obvious because you get a quick turnaround. And just for everybody's benefit to know this, when we are about implementing our ERP solutions, we often have TRAILD go standalone beforehand because people are just desperate to get to a large part of that value, and we just connect it back and it takes half an hour once we're actually live. And so yep, there's some things that aren't fully connected. You might have to dump a spreadsheet out or something, but once they're live, as a low-hanging fruit. But I think the other thing is the reporting side and understanding the business. So for me, I would be looking at how I get insights into the business as fast as possible if I haven't got those today. So the people that I'd be talking to there are, if you're running a lot of spreadsheets and compiling a lot of multiple spreadsheets together to get information and see where the business is at, maybe doing that on a weekly or quarterly basis, weekly or monthly basis, you need to get towards real time. So they're the two obvious ones, but I suspect there's some more ones that we'd also like to talk about.
Thanks, Rob. So I completely agree with that statement. So hopefully our audience can, take them with them. I mean, take that as a key takeaway. So basically those areas and tasks that are time consuming and error prone. So making them a real ideal automation, tools that integrate seamlessly with your existing ERP system. Thanks, Rob. So I think this next question goes to Shradha. So the question goes, what's the typical ROI timeframe for implementing TRAILD in a mid-size organization?
Yeah, so from an ROI perspective, it's really quite quick. And actually, when I say quick, I'm talking days, not months or years. There's a recent ATO report that came out that said the cost of processing your AP without automation around the $27, $28 mark. And then the cost of processing your AP with TRAILD automation, that brings that down to $7. And so really, if you multiply your invoice count by $20 an invoice per month, that's the amount that you'll be saving every single month. And I can assure you that the TRAILD subscription costs aren't that amount. So yeah, from an ROI perspective, you really are talking days from a payback period.
I think, Shradha, from what you shared, it's really clear that it's a quick deployment. So TRAILD can really be up and running in a days and with a minimal disruption, of course, with the ERP system. Right. So yeah, we have here some more few interesting questions. I guess this is still goes. This question goes for you, Shradha. So for finance team with limited IT support, how easy it is to maintain and scale TRAILD once it's live?
Yeah. So you talked to the implementation being super quick, and again, I'm talking hours, not days or months for implementation. And then from a maintenance perspective, there really isn't a lot involved. Your monthly subscription with TRAILD includes all of your support. It includes any kind of integration. If you upgrade your Acumatica, for example, then kind of reintegrating TRAILD into that. We cover all of that on our side. So you really don't need a designated IT team to maintain anything to do with TRAILD. We're a fully SaaS-based platform with a onshore customer service team that can support in real time.
So Marie, I might just add to that if that's right, because I think that conversation is really interesting about IT size. It's the same conversation for Acumatica. It's a cloud solution, so it's a reduced IT requirement. So what we see with businesses of all sizes, they may have IT people, by the way, and they leverage those, but really we're looking for administrators and business people with some good nous to work on it. So our solution, or the ERP solutions in the cloud, typically don't have that requirement like they used to for heavy IT grunt and that. So that's an important factor on everything, I think.
Thank you, Rob, for that additional information. Of course, thanks, Shradha. So at its core, I think TRAILD keeps things really simple. So finance team can really focus on the strategy and not on the system. So I think we have a few more questions. So I think this one goes to Shradha again, but Rob, feel free to add. So does TRAILD leverage data from the ERP itself, like vendor performance, payment terms, cash position, or is it still manual decision layer?
Yeah, it does. It does take a lot of your master data from Acumatica to start to begin with. And then from a banking perspective, we're comparing that data with the invoice, and then we're also comparing both of those things with the external economy. So it's not just leveraging your own or our own aggregated data. It really is using the power of our platforms in addition to external partnerships that we have to validate those details as well. But yeah, the more you use TRAILD, that's how your historical averages start to form, your seasonality starts to form, and that decision making is by exception thereafter.
So I will add something to that because I think this is really relevant here. TRAILD had done such a good job in Australia and New Zealand, where they've focused early on, and have done a fantastic job globally now as one of the Acumatica partners in other countries, particularly the US, where money lives. And I think that there's a relevance to the connection these guys have with the ERP solution, but they also talk to other ERPs. I don't want to lose sight of that on TRAILD's behalf. There's some chosen lists, but they're very good at becoming part of the actual ecosystem, and that's really important to that conversation. So I always tell people there's a closed loop, right? It starts in Acumatica in whatever way, and it finishes in Acumatica where it should, as such. And that's that connection you really want to have.
Thanks, Rob. So TRAILD empowers really finance team to shift their focus by value-adding activities, but of course by streamlining those manual processes. So for those questions that we might miss during this Q&A session, don't worry, we'll be in touch with you. And if you wanted to have a quick one-on-one discussion, we're always open for setting up a meeting offline. So yeah, we have here another question, and if we'll get any more questions, this will be gonna be our last question. So how do you get buy-in from internal teams that are special of TRAILD taking over their roles?
TRAILD's mission statement is not to replace your AP process with AI. It's actually about repurposing those mundane tasks of data entry. You absolutely need somebody to oversee your AP process, to manage the exceptions that undoubtedly would come up. Because not only when you're being defrauded that you'll get a risk message, it's also when an error occurs, a duplicate occurs, the supplier sent you something with an unusual amount that's different to the price book or whatever it is. And so it's actually not about having touchless AP. It's about having someone that can manage the process by exception, and any time saving will be purely on data inputting and data entry, essentially, that they can then repurpose to provide better insights to the organization around growth or supplier pricing or whatever it might be to save the organization some money. So we're really passionate about that, because of course we speak to AP teams all the time, and even with our existing customer base, like, it's never about replacing, it's about being an aid, a decision-making tool to aid you in managing by exception.
So Maria, I might jump in as well. I think that this conversation is relevant across finance automation as a concept. We have it regularly. And I think the simple way I always present this is it's not about necessarily reducing your staff. Look, if you're fat with too many people in the AP world anyway, maybe that's a discussion. It's actually about the scalability side of the conversation, in having a platform for when you grow that you don't add on people, that you simply just grow to the size you need with the team you have today. And I think that's one of the true benefits from AP automation in the finance sense.
Thanks, Rob and Shradha. So please allow me to say TRAILD is not a job replacer, but a job enhancer. So yeah, I'm just checking for a few more questions from our audience. So again, if we miss your question, don't worry, we'll catch up with you. So I think that's pretty much all of our questions for now. So that brings us to the end of today's session. So again, we'll be happy to follow up with you and connect with you if in case that you need more clarification and wanted to really arrange a quick call to discuss outstanding queries. So a big thank you to Rob and Shradha for sharing your valuable insights today. So it has been an honor to have you both with us. And of course, to our audience, we truly appreciate your taking time and participation. And if you'd like to explore any topics that we have discussed further and learn about automation solution can be layered onto your platform, like MYOB Acumatica and NetSuite. So enabling finance transformation without need for a full system replacement. We're always open to further discussion. And of course, we'll be happy to connect with you in a one-on-one to address any specific question and concern that you might have. So by the way, a recording of this webinar will be sent to you for your reference. So Rob and Shradha, before we officially wrap, any final announcement or reminders or insights that you'd like to share and highlight, please go ahead.
Well, one thing I would say to everybody that's attending, these are very personal, nuanced conversations. So today's really just about to start the conversation. Would be really happy if they wanted to sit down and have a conversation with me further around the automation options, around what's specific in their world.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, so again, thank you everyone and for being with us today. So we hope that you find this session insightful. So wishing you a great day ahead, and until next time. Bye for now.